Occasionally, something goes wrong with the buttons on a Brother machine that is not responsive to the Croyle technique Jack has already shown you. In this video, he'll show you what is needed if there's a deeper problem.
Alright, let's briefly follow the course of this Ask Jack scenario. Email said buttons are stuck. We went through, put Croyle in, let it set. She tried that. She got some LPS1. She even tried Lori Lynn. She even pulled one button out with a pair of pliers. But listen to this maraca. That's the problem. Buttons still aren't working, and she knew it's not supposed to rattle like that. So what we're going to do here is a rapid exploratory surgery, because I don't mind taking them apart quickly, because I can always get them back together.
And you're doing this mostly to show people what goes on in there, not really to recommend that most people do it on their own. Am I right?
That's correct. I want to show you what you're getting into.
Now, some mechanics are quite up to it and patient and calm, and they can do it.
That's right. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying that it's not as easy as it looks. And if you don't feel confident, don't attempt it.
You can't see through his hands, but Jack is releasing one of the many springs that hold the whole thing together.
This spring is attached beyond this plate, and we've got to get this plate off. And what we're going to find out is a lot of things are going to try to reposition themselves once we get this plate off. If you notice, this spring is also hooked in such a position. I'm not showing you my trade secrets on how to get these springs off of here. There's a reason you can't see through my hand.
Well, every now and then one of them flies at my face or the camera, so we'll know when that happens.
Yeah, but I try not to do that.
Not too often.
But if you'll notice, all of these springs have little companions here and there that if they don't all get back on there right, it's never going to work.
And everything looks like it's correctly positioned because it is.
Yeah, but they've got several different positions they can take, which is what one of the ones I got in Raleigh last year. They'd been into it, they'd done everything just right. However, when they went to go back, they weren't sure of the position they saw. And if you'll notice, when I pulled these springs off, these arms moved. Those springs were doing two things. They were pulling back when this arm is actuated, but they were also limiting the travel of that arm to this post. Okay? So it's a two-part operation inside of there for just about everything that's done.
They really are amazingly designed.
They are. They're beautiful. That's why I like working on them.
That's why we like knitting on them.
All right, now here comes the hard part. It has to slide past this post in order to come free, and this guy's going to have to come off there. This is part you can't see. It's too ugly. Actually, I have to do it where I can see. And this is where I have an advantage over most people. I'm never afraid to snatch it apart because I can always figure out how it went back together later.
I heard that in your boyhood you couldn't always do that.
Well,
but your past is littered with, your long past.
Up until I was 8 years old, they called me the lawnmower murderer. Now, this is the underside of what we've got there. But this is also the underside of what we've got there. And remember, in the other video I was telling you that this is one slide, and this is the other slide. Remember, in one position they'll both move together on the bottom button, or the top button moves by itself. So obviously the movement is not the problem.
No, they're moving.
All right, and I'm pretty sure what we're going to find out is this button...
Is that bent?
No, it's not really bent. This end is chewed up a little bit. But this is your plane button, and this should move freely back and forth. But what's happened is both of those...
I don't think this is the plane button. Aren't we the main color button?
No, right here.
Oh, that's
under
the
my
plane
thumb
button. Okay.
is the plane button that releases everything. And the reason it does that, see those tangs at the back?
I do.
Every one of those tangs, when they move over, if you'll notice now, the buttons are free to slide in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But when the tangs go back, then they're not. They have to move that to get it. That's how that operates. But here's the thing. Both of these button slides have to straddle this collar.
Mm-hmm.
If one of them gets misaligned and does not straddle...
Let's point the collar out a little bit more. Here, this will show up better than the silver.
Right. Right there. There's a depression. Let me see if I can hold it up so you can look down and see.
Don't get too close. It goes
There's
out of
a
focus.
cutaway spot.
Yes, now
right
I can
there.
see.
There's another one right there. Okay, that's your critical distance, is right there between those two. Now the cover goes in the top one with the top slide, and the bottom one has to go right underneath there. If they're not exactly lined up, that's when this thing will not work, and the buttons, no matter what you do.
Now I'm curious, what would have gotten a working carriage misaligned? Dropping it, maybe?
Yeah, usually that's what happens. Or it was dirty. She cleaned it. It's
nicely done.
Oh yeah, it's beautifully clean. But you see, she cleaned it, but there originally was dirt in there. Let me see if I can point out.
Could it have forced something out of alignment?
Yeah, yeah. See, when this is all the way out, let me see if I can, there you go. When that's all the way out, this just barely straddles the post. If I put it back in.
So if there was something in the way, even a fuzz buildup.
Right, right. See, let me see if I can.
And of course, we all buy these machines swearing we will never ever drop them, but life isn't perfect. I've dropped mine.
All right, now let me see if I can point out if the camera can see. This is just the tip of that button, and it's not even lined up with the back of the post. So it doesn't take much to shift this, and then the buttons are out of the slide.
What was rattling?
I think what was rattling was this slide.
Slipping to and fro and not engaging.
Yeah, right. It was rattling back and forth because it wasn't in its track.
Oh, of course.
Right. See, because nothing else, all of these things are spring-loaded. That's one of the things I caution you about, is every one of these little springs, if one of those were loose, which is what happened to the ladies up in Raleigh, one of those springs came loose, they went in, they actually replaced the spring with a new spring. I don't know where they got it, I'm not going to ask. But when they did that, they got some misalignment in here. And then it wouldn't go back. Remember I showed you how these arms are actually held in two different positions?
Yes.
By two different springs? Well, they had the spring clipped so that it was holding it back instead of pushing it forward. Well, when they took it apart, they just took the spring off. When they put it back, they just assumed, hey, this spring is supposed to pull. But you see what I've got here? Let me see if I can do it with a hemostat. This is one of the springs we're talking about. Alright, look at the piece that spring is on. You could put it on the back side of that rod when it was on there, and you'd think that's right, but it's exactly wrong. It's got to be around on this side, pushing. Suffice it to say, it's not an easy job. I'm going to put it back together. I'm going to get it ready to knit. Catherine will test it. We'll send it home. If you feel up to this, here's a video to help you out. If you don't, here's me. I'll do it for you.
And this is what he'll be doing if you have this kind of problem.
Exactly.